Father, when can I leave to be on my own?
He doesn't move like he's man out of wood. It's fully 2D animation.
No 3D at all.
So where does CG have trouble versus 2D have trouble in your opinion?
Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Stick around to the end so you can find out how to get 15% off your Raycon purchase.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Animators React. We are here on the couch with Alex Snow, and we did some episodes with Alex in the past. Alex is a very accomplished animator. He's been working on a bunch of stuff.
What are we gonna be looking at?
Today I brought a bunch of clips, both CG and 2D.
Let's do it, let's jump in.
Let's go!
So we're gonna take a look at Klaus, which is awesome. If you guys haven't seen a good Christmas movie in a while, Klaus, you definitely need to check out. It's the origin of Santa Claus. It's like Batman, but it's Santa Claus.
So you're saying this is like Batman Begins for Santa?
This is Batman Begins for Santa.
This is Santa Starts.
Santa Starts. Yeah, they could have called it Santa Starts, but it wasn't as good as Klaus.
The working title.
So it looks like 2D animation, right? But
Yeah.
the shading is like way beyond anything. Like there's textures that are like stuck to the surfaces.
See the highlight on her hair as she leaves the sort of sunbeam there? It's like you got this nice soft lighting on her hair that then slowly sort of fades back behind her head.
Just to pull the curtain back, it's fully 2D animation.
No 3D at all.
There are some 3D elements, but as far as character animation, it is fully 2D animation for all the characters, with some props and things that are CG.
This is kind of reminding me of the first Space Jam movie where they went through and they did the classic, layer of animation, but then they went back and did a shading pass where they really try to add not just the shadows, but the highlights to really make it feel more three-dimensional.
Space Jam is probably one of the best examples of kind of that like volumetric lighting, but every high quality 2D animation has highlights and shadow passes. So with Klaus, the thing about the lighting is they're basically using technology to track the highlights and things like that. And there's like a lighting team making very specific artistic choices. You're still having to babysit it and make those choices and make sure your frame is the way you want it at the end of the day. So it's kind of combining the old way of highlights and cleanup and using technology to aid with that, but also aid it with more details.
So modern rotoscoping, a lot of it is just doing a shape with points, and you just move those points and the shape will adapt. So it looks like they're really just leveraging that technology and then using, of course, the lines and their layers to basically punch out these areas and just let those masks move, and you just follow the hand animation, and you're doing the lighting by hand still, but you're relying on the computer to push those lines frame by frame, so you can kind of just do the overall appearance. And I bet you can also there's some intelligent stuff in there where it's kind of pinning itself
100%.
the layers a little bit.
I definitely think they're using some tracking tech. You kind of create this mask and then you're adjusting it how you need, but also the computer's helping you.
We do very similar relighting with a lot of our visual effects actually, where you'll have a person and it's like, okay, I need there's a muzzle flash or an explosion, I need some light to hit them, and you'll go in and you'll draw the light in by hand, but you're not taking a paintbrush in Photoshop and painting it. You're carving out an area with your spline paths, and then you're just animating that every couple frames to track until it's done. It seems like they're basically just doing the same thing here. So Alex, can you talk about how they incorporate 3D elements into 2D animation?
It's just like a super advanced version of where 2D animation was kind of headed back when it kind of stopped on a feature level.
Change in plan, lads! We move now!
Treasure Planet was breaking into all new things. They animated roughly an arm for the captain, and then they replaced it with CG as a robot arm. It was headed towards using CG in a way that would advance the medium without taking away from the artistry and the 2D understanding that they had built for the last 80 years.
Viewers might be wondering why an object would be done in 3D versus hand-drawn in a movie that's hand-drawn. My observation is that basically anytime you're dealing with an object that's like a geometrically kind of complex shape that's not squashing or squishing or talking or moving, that's something where if you do that as a 3D object and just kind of cell shade it, it just makes it really easy when that object's just there, but just changing perspectives. So all the food on the tray, that food isn't talking or dancing, it's just sitting there. And so as she picks up the tray, now you have to, as an artist, you have to go in and you have to draw perfect perspective shifts on all these geometric shapes as it gets carried around. This is actually something that I believe Japanese animators were known for doing really well back in the day with the original Gundam cartoons. They do perfect draft drawings of these robots as the perspective would shift. It'd all just be flawless. But these days you can do that kind of thing in CG. You can still do your characters hand-drawn, But if you have like a truck or a car, you see this in The Simpsons or Futurama, like the cars are just a shape, and the shape moves perspective-wise, and that's it.
Yeah, the hardest part is then like melding it back into the 2D space.
Another thing I'm noticing here, I think it's important to note that even though most of this is not computer generated, it is still going through a 3D process. I imagine like the foreground layers are being exported out as separate layers that are then having an optical pass applied to it, such as depth of field. Notice how the actual depth of field is getting blurrier as it gets closer to camera, and that that focus plane is changing. And I was noticing this earlier too, where you have a character who's out of focus in the foreground, and I'm pretty sure that's a computer generated focus effect happening. It's very difficult to intentionally paint or draw something out of focus. And that is where the 3D aspect of using computers, you can really leverage
100%.
that.
So where does CG have trouble versus 2D have trouble in your opinion?
The computer is made to make realistic stuff. There's advantages to this with lighting and texture tracking. And so then it becomes, how do we fight the plastic feel of Sid from Toy Story, or even worse, the baby from Toy Story? There's certain things that need rigidity. There's certain things that need to be broken, where you start to lean more into the artistic look that isn't necessarily replicating reality, but being influenced by reality in the same way a painting is. Like one of the more successful ones I think Disney's done is Feast. Feast is doing that, I think, probably the best that we've ever seen a major studio do up until maybe Arcane, and arguably this looks nothing like Arcane. This is a very different look. It's just interesting as everyone's kind of taking different approaches to stop motion, to 2D, to 3D. Literally every form of animation right now is going through this growth and evolution where it wants to stand out, it wants to be unique and as amazing and pop off the screen as much as concept art pops off the page.
Hey, you, get over here.
So Bad Guys is kind of just in the same scope as what we've been talking about. This is DreamWorks' latest film, and they've kind of shifted away from their old stuff, kind of shifted into pushing that style, matching their concept art to some degree. And it's just really interesting to see something that's pushing away from that generic CG style and look, but doing it in a way that's so different than other stuff we've seen today.
You got the hand-drawn effects in there?
Yeah.
I'm getting slight like Mitchell versus the Machine vibes here too.
Yeah, Mitchell's is another great example of it's doing a lot of 2D animation in addition to it, but what they're doing in like the face.
What?
You can see like the teeth are changing dependent. It's doing a lot of things. You see like that little ring around his pupil on that shot.
The black outlines on his eyes,
Yeah.
the lines on his cheeks when he smiles.
The cheeks. You'll see blush lines on the characters sometimes. There's just a lot of cool things they're doing, but even with their movement, the posing. You see a lot of this in Pixar's latest film, Turning Red, and a little bit in Luca as well. So you're just seeing that influence kind of flow through so many movies right now. But yeah, I didn't do much work on Bad Guys, but even the little bit I was on was super fun, and just being able to play with these characters was so cool.
I'm just wondering how the animator had to tackle that scene where the snake plays the guitar.
Ropes are not great in CG, and snakes aren't too much better. But they had a cool rig on Snake. I used it completely wrong on my shot, and halfway through I was like, oh, that's how you're supposed to use it. But even with that, I was able to get what I needed. It was pretty creative, and the things people did with him, even just like the break in his neck. You see this in like art lessons and stuff, like straights versus curves and things like that. So like an arm like this, you'd want the straight here and then flowy on the other side. Same with like a leg, so you feel that knee, but you feel the like thigh and the calf. It kind of creates this nice balance of straights and curves. And so it's hard to do when you have something that bends with a rig that's trying to weight that difference and keep that volume, and make something like really straight or rigid, even like a back of a head, you do that with a pencil, you just go, oh, okay. Like the back of his head is stylized. But yeah, for Snake, getting those breaks in his neck, dependent on the camera and the performance and moving in and out of those is, a lot of work that you don't really realize till you're doing it.
Hey everybody, I need some comments here. I need some suggestions. There's those cheap kid shows cartoons. What's the one scene where you're like, that was crazy and blew my mind? I would love those suggestions. I kind of feel like we should look at James Lee's stuff next, actually. So James Lee's been doing animations for years. He started way back in the early Newgrounds days.
Oh, nice.
Here's an animator that's so good at posing, he does it himself with stop motion in his body and blends it with hand animation.
So you want a music video? Yeah, I
This pose right here he does.
How he's moving and posing is very similar to like how you would animate an anime.
Indoctrination of your audience who then come to my channel and subscribe to me.
Well, that's crazy.
Yo, wait, was that a?
Warping himself?
I think that's a warp.
But everything is so like perfectly smooth.
Yeah, he's so good at this style. You see it once in a while, it's very subtle, but he'll change the shape of his glasses to match his expressions.
That's cool.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It's subtle. It gets a little bit of that.
Yeah, it bends. Yeah, that's one of the most annoying things is characters with big glasses that don't change because their brows are always
I didn't
underneath.
realize that. That's really funny.
And some characters are just, you have to crank the eyebrows up so high to see them or so low to see them that you don't get the feeling you want unless the glasses happen to be like the shape, like he's mainly evil. But like the relationship between the brow and the pupil specifically is so important for selling how you feel, and that compression. Yeah. So in the face, it's like a whole nother body, right? So everything is affecting each other. If you look up, your eyelids are going to usually stay peaked where your eyeball is looking. So you have to understand what's leading what and how that can change the emotion, the expression. When you smile for real, the corners of your mouth push up your cheeks and your cheeks push up your lower lids. So you're seeing this compression on the lower half. And even if I'm not even happy, it seems like I'm happier than I was when I was just smiling just by compressing those eyes.
So yeah, like the thing that I find really cool is like he's fully understood like poses. And like he'll literally be frozen and it'll just be like 3 or 4 frames go like hit the different pose.
He's a very dark character. How his pose is read via the background compared to his, pose is super important because if his hand is in shadow and his chest is in shadow, all of a sudden his hand's gone. So if it's doing anything interesting, you're not going to see it. So like him bringing his hand out into the silhouette of his body and clearing that.
I mean, even when he hits the pose, like his lips sticking out, he has like a little bit of backlight hitting his bottom lip, so it's not just lost in the silhouette of his face.
God, yeah, there's so much effort going into every single shot here. Oh my God, this is just like Meme City going on. This is like one of those things where like it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. It has all of like the intent of just being wild.
Yeah. It's worth looking at just because this is how you animate when you start. As much as this was probably done definitely just for laughs and for, how much time do you really want to spend on it? Honestly, we don't start with something dissimilar to this when we start in CG animation pipeline because it goes from storyboards, then you have to figure out how to make that in space, and then generally speaking at most studios you'll get something like this, you'll delete the animation and then you'll kind of use that basic positioning as your starting point and then you build. There's no reason this animation couldn't be awesome. It's just this artist, obviously there's no reason for them to.
Yeah, you can get a lot of diminishing returns on the refinement, but here I think the lack of refinement is part of the point.
To continue this trend, here's another clip.
There you go. Now, what should we name you?
Pinocchio.
This you almost have to hear with the dialogue.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the
This is a real movie, a real trailer. He does a lot of backflips. He doesn't move like he's man out of wood. Something we did on Oz, the Great and Powerful, was the China girl, making her feel fragile and shaky. And we do the same thing with Olaf. Like he can't bend his stick arms because they're made of sticks. So this, to me, he's not animated like he's wood at all. He's just animated like anyone else.
He's just animated like a boy.
Yeah.
They skip the whole your puppet part.
Unfortunately, everyone else is animated just as wood and like. So, and to be fair, I'm sure they had a tight time and budget and everything like always. But there's little things that you can choose to do that have nothing to do with that. Like even that quick shot of the horse's hooves landing. The fact that they're all like this, perfectly in line with each other right there. Like there's no imperfections of the foot turned out or depth being thought of the feet landing at different times. There's no texture in it, meaning visual movement texture built in. It's just very rigid and stiff. The posing is very twinned, meaning the same on each side exactly, not any kind of asymmetry. There's just so many things you could spend the same amount of time.
No, like you're something like you're opening up like my eyes to this. It's like, okay, like, put some vibration in the feet, like have one turned outwards and like, break the continuity, break the symmetry.
Yeah, it's really the same concept as what we were talking about. It's just like the imperfections are what sells the believability. When everything is very perfect, not that that's perfect, but it feels computer generated. It feels out of the box. It doesn't have the life or the believability built in. Even if you're looking at like Paw Patrol, there's thought going behind the poses. It's something like Hotel Transylvania. It takes a lot longer to get your key poses because you literally have to sculpt some of those for the shot, break the rig, use a lattice deformer, use all sorts of tweaks and twists. But you're making up for that time by snapping from pose to pose, so you don't have to live within it, or you can get out of it seamlessly without slowly undoing that warped brokenness. So you can hide it.
The cinematography is the thing that stands out to me here too. Like, there's some shots that are framed fine, but there's a lot of shots that aren't really framed that great for what's going on. It takes just as much time to put your camera here as it does here, right? That shot could have been framed better and taken the exact same amount of time to make.
Something I see in CG, especially with like demo reels and people's work, is the locked off camera. It's an emotional shot. You want that camera to slowly go in and bring you into the character and what they're dealing with. That's 2 keyframes on a camera. And people don't do it.
I mean, look at how many locked off shots are in this.
Exactly.
You know?
There's no thought behind it. The cinematography, like good storyboards and good music, you're already feeling what you're going to feel in the finished film. And if you're not, you're fighting it the whole time.
It's weird also seeing like this rendered like without ambient occlusion, without like...
Yeah. I mean, Klaus had subsurface scattering and this doesn't.
What's up guys, I'm Jordan, and today I'm gonna be talking to you about Raycon, today's sponsor. Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They fit perfect in the ear because of their optimized gel tips. They're so comfortable and they will not budge, trust me. Raycons are priced just right. You get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. They offer 8 hours of playtime and also 32-hour battery life. I can just take it out my ear, pop it right on in the case, and close it, and it starts charging immediately. It's so convenient. No wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 49,000 5-star reviews. I do wear these earbuds around the studio, but the perfect thing about them is I can still hear my coworkers while I'm doing my stuff. But if I want to hone in and focus and do something just on my own, I can turn on the isolation mode and I won't hear anything around me. I could keep talking about Raycon all day, but I think it's time that you go find out about them on your own. So click that link or go to buyraycon.com/corridorcrew so you can get 15% off of your own pair of Raycons. Let me know what color you choose.
Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a huge blast to shoot with you. I can't wait to have you on the show again next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun coming, and I would absolutely love to come back.
You can find Alex on Instagram at Snowmation plus Double Plus Productions, both on Instagram. Check it out.
And in the thingy.
There's links down below, of course. You know how to do this. There's also this like little notification bell you can hit when you hit that subscribe
You look
button.
right here, there's a bunch more videos you can watch. It's like a whole website and everything.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys in the next one.